Welcome to the Values Exchange podcast. I'm Mike Cruz, your host, author of Saturday Every Day, private pilot, and CEO of North Texas Wealth Management, a firm dedicated to values-based financial planning. Today, we're talking about the value of vulnerability, pushing beyond our limits. Our guest today is someone who redefines what it means to overcome obstacles, Helgi Olafson. Helgi's not just an ultra endurance athlete, he's a super yacht chef, a fierce advocate for those battling health challenges, and a living example of resilience, grit, and purpose. Diagnosed with this debilitating autoimmune disease at just 19, a condition that fuses the spine and locks the joints. Helgi could have chosen a sedentary life, but instead, he embraced the mantra that has become his mission: movement is medicine. Helgi recently took on one of the most grueling endurance challenges on the planet, the Trans Triple Crown of 200s, a staggering 2,850-mile test of human will, traversing the rugged terrain of the American West. And if that wasn't enough, he did it while battling a broken foot, relentless wildfires, and countless physical setbacks, all in pursuit of raising awareness and funds for those who, like him, live with ankylosing spondylitis. Today, we'll uncover Helgi's journey, his first race, the highs and lows of recent challenges, and the relentless pursuit to inspire others to embrace their vulnerabilities and push beyond their own limits. We'll also explore how his experience as a super yacht chef prepared him for high pressure endurance events and discuss the status of the documentary that's set to capture his awe inspiring story. So, buckle up because today's episode isn't just about endurance racing, it's about vulnerability, resilience, and what it truly means to push beyond the impossible. Well, Helgi, thank you for joining me today. Glad to have you on the Values Exchange.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm excited to be here.
It's good. So, all right, it looks like you're on the super yacht right now in Florida. I see the chef outfit there. What's for lunch today?
Actually, it's Taco Tuesday, so when we don't have guests aboard, we still have to feed the crew, and I like to do Taco Tuesday for the crew every Tuesday. So got little street tacos with some quesadillas and Mexican rice is a must-have for sure. You got to add the tomatoes in that water for the Mexican rice.
That's right. Nice, nice. Do you have a favorite dish that you like to prepare?
Honestly, that's a question that puts me in a corner. And I always say that, but that's because that's always the question that I get asked. I just like to prepare my food with love and I focus on technique. There's so many dishes that I have to create or be able to create as a super yacht chef that it's really a labor of love and being able to hone those skills in all of those different areas. So I don't really have one favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. And I think everything you're doing in your life you do with passion, whether it be cooking or pursuing these marathons. So, today we're talking about the value of vulnerability, the amazing things that you have accomplished. And so, talk me through the story of like how do you go from super yacht chef to running these ultra marathons?
Well, they kind of went hand in hand. I didn't start working as a super yacht chef until 2011, which is the same year that I started as an endurance athlete. And I didn't really do ultra marathons until 2015 was my first ultra marathon. But I've always been active and a runner, and I've always been a chef since I was 17, 18 years old. So I bridged the gap into super yacht chefing when I started doing endurance sports. Um, and it was kind of a aha moment when I took a chance on myself, and I guess I would be considered vulnerable at the time to be the runner for an Olympic distance triathlon relay team in Hawaii. The folks had a team member that couldn't make it, and I was able to run a 10K, or at least I thought I was. I didn't have any of the gear or anything like that I that the other runners had, but I knew that I could do it. So when I crossed that finish line, it kind of lit a fire under me and gave me that little win of being the one to cross the finish line and thinking that I could do more. So it was the baby step towards the big picture of where I'm at right now. And from that point until now, it's been a ton of different baby steps that have gotten me here.
Yeah. Wow. So, going from, running these marathons to the ultra marathon, um, you have the motto, movement is medicine. So I love that. And I think it's true for so many people in their life. I mean, the more we move, I mean, it's just such a good thing for us. But many times we let setbacks or health challenges or even our schedule keep us from getting that movement in per day. So when you kind of frame that mindset, I know you were overcoming, maybe the diagnosis of the health challenge. What was that like for you, and how did you come up with that mindset versus maybe doing what most people would do, and just kind of feeling like the victim?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that I had a good support system. Um, being diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis, which is what you're referring to,
Mhm.
it's an autoimmune arthritis that involves fusion of joints that results from inflammation of the entheses, which are the attachment points of ligaments and tendons to bone. So essentially, every bone in my body can be affected by this disease, and my body just kind of fuses together over the course of time. And that scares me, and makes me want to keep moving and stay in motion so that doesn't happen. But you know, when I was diagnosed, my rheumatologist was really helpful, and he assured me that I would still be able to live a normal life with ankylosing spondylitis. I was diagnosed at age 19, and I'm 41 now, going on 42. Um, and you know, having those words said from my doctor, who, by the way, is still my doctor to this day, was very powerful for me and made me feel as though even if I didn't believe in myself, somebody else did believe in me, and that was enough for me to take that step and believe in myself, or at least give myself a try and be vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and when you say vulnerable, I'm sure it's the fear of failure, right? Going after maybe these long races and not being able to complete them. So walk me through, signing up for this first race. How mentally committed were you to the race when you signed up? Was this something you were just going to try, or were you really confident that you could finish this first race? How long was your first race?
Well, my first ultra was a 50K that I I signed up for with some buddies, and we just did it for fun. I went from doing Ironman triathlons and running marathon. I did a 3:14 marathon, which is pretty fast. And I thought that it would translate over into trail and ultra running with kind of the same speed, and I was very mistaken. Just because terrain and uh, environment plays a big role in the pace. Um, so I was able to do some little wins for myself and do 100K, and I felt like I was trained up enough to do this, to at least sign up for a 240-mile ultra marathon, which was the Moab 240 in 2017, the first year that they did the Moab 240. And you know, I asked the race director, because it was run by the same race organization, Destination Trail, and I asked her. I said, "Do you think I can do this?" And maybe it was her saying, "Yeah, I think you could do it. You only have to go 2.1 miles per hour average pace, and you can get it done." And so, that was again somebody kind of saying, "Hey, here's this dangling carrot. Go out and get it." And so that was really all I needed to sign up for it. Once I did that, it opened up a huge can of worms and really motivated me to try to do the best that I could. And I was scared, of the failure, like you're talking about. So, at that point, it's like, okay, well, I can be scared and I can back out and not do this, or I can just go out there and try, or I can, work backwards and figure out, how I'm going to get to this aid station, what I'm going to need to get there, and you know, basically trial and error some things, but um, try as hard as I can to do it right the first time, which is what I landed on, and I tried to do that. I remember I was living with my brother at the time in his mother-in-law suite in his basement, and there was this countertop that I partitioned off with duct tape, squares that were basically each drop bag that I was going to see along the way in the race, because you pack your drop bags and you get to that aid station and you get the stuff that's in the drop bag. Obviously, the aid station also has food and whatever else that you need, medical support, radio support, all that stuff. But it's nice to have those items and maybe a clean shirt, or a new pair of socks, or even a new pair of shoes. So I was really nerding out on the logistics side of it. And I mean, if I could go back and do it the way that I do it now, with spreadsheets and everything that I do to plan for these things, I would do that. But that's where it started, and I really really like that problem solving side of these races. Um,
Hmm.
the but getting to that start line was definitely a challenge. But once I got there and I felt like I had done the preparations that I needed to do, it was super fun. And there was so much more to be learned during that journey that I would have never known unless I actually went on the journey. So I just learned so much in that first race, first 200, I would say.
Yeah, first 200. Wow. And what would you say the lessons were if I were going to go out there and do it? And you were going to give me maybe three pieces of advice, Mike, before you do this race. You got to do these three things. What would that advice be?
Well, number one, I would say you need to be confident, but also cautious at the same time. And then you have to put the training in. I mean, you're not just going to go out there and wing it.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that takes time and dedication, and it'll take time away from family and away from other things that you need to accomplish in your life. I mean, everybody has a different life and has different responsibilities, but at the end of the day, the most important thing that I would say is it's really important to maintain a healthy balance, because it's so easy to go headfirst into ultra marathon, especially because it could be considered a healthy addiction. um, that you when you're out there, it's so easy to escape and just be one with your footsteps, and you're eating 300 to 400 calories an hour, whatever routine that you get into. But it's really important to make sure that you're spending time thinking about the things that you need to do in reality, in your real life,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
kind of a dreamland out there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I can't imagine stepping up to that line and knowing how far you have to go. And so the sense of accomplishment when you get to that finish line, I'm sure is unreal. Um, what were the challenges? I know that you had a fractured foot along the way. Was that during your first race?
No, actually, so I finished that Moab 240, and then the very next year I signed up for the Triple Crown, which it switched the order because of the fires in California, but it used to be Bigfoot 200 first in August, and then Tahoe 200 in September, and Moab 240 in October. So I did that in 2018. And when I crossed the finish line of that, I was telling myself, okay, I have to do something bigger. So I decided I was going to do the Triple Crown, but connect the races in between each race on foot. And so that was supposed to be 2,850 miles on foot, um, over 61 days. and I I spent about 2 years planning for that. The logistics were just very, very intricate with all the stopping points and people that I needed for support, and obviously all the supplies and just a lot of logistics. So I get 6 days from the start line of the Bigfoot 200, and I stopped in Montana on the way out to Washington, which is where the race is. It goes around Mount St. Helens, and I broke my foot on my final training run, descending what's called the Lava Lake Trail in the Gallatin National Forest, and you know I was really, really bummed out about it. But I still, I still decided to start the race, and I was able to finish that race. My foot went numb about 50 miles into the race,
Wow.
and I kind of just went with it. And I had like a sideways, uh, inward facing foot for the whole time. And when I finished, yeah, I was already behind schedule because I was supposed to finish that race and then start running toward the next one. That's how much time I had to get it done. And I had brought my bike on my truck, which I had a support crew with me that was driving my truck. And so I got on the bike and I made up the time. And then I went and got an X-ray and confirmed the break, and decided that I could still do this and reimagine and reinvent my plan, and do it on the bike in between and give my foot a chance to recover. Um, so yeah. Anyways, I did that, and I was able to complete the Triple Crown, but doing the biking in between instead. So it was still 2,850 miles with about 750 of that running and the rest on the bike.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. So when you went back to the doctor, was he like, "Hey, now wait a minute, Helgi. I said movement's medicine, but I didn't say run on a broken foot."
Well, I mean, I got the X-ray at like a urgent care
Yeah.
clinic in Oregon, but when I
Okay.
went to go after the whole thing was done back in Florida, back home,
Mhm.
you know, that's the lecture that I got,
Yeah.
and I had to get surgery on my foot in order to fix it. But
Wow. Yeah.
I recovered 8 weeks, and I did the Cocodona 250 the next year.
Wow. Wow. Man, just pushing through. So, you've become very passionate about, I'll call it the cause, right? The advocacy you do for others that are really facing the same challenges as you with health, pushing through these races to inspire others. Talk to me about that journey. What do you hope to accomplish?
Okay, well, as a runner, I feel like I have a special voice in the ultra marathon community because I have ankylosing spondylitis, and you know a lot of folks who have my condition lead sedentary lifestyles just because they feel like they can't do things. And I'm not someone who's going to speak to everyone else's case who has ankylosing spondylitis, because there are people who are severely fused together, and they have more complications than I do, and lack of mobility. So it is a real thing. But I am so passionate about keeping the body in motion with ankylosing spondylitis. And I feel lucky to have been diagnosed at age 19, whereas a lot of folks who I meet along the way are, 35, 40, 50, and they just got diagnosed after a lifetime of, uh, I just have a bad back. And I want to get away from that. I don't feel like that is something that is acceptable to society. I think that people really have to take control of their health and
Mhm.
find out if there's something wrong with them. They if they feel something wrong, they need to keep hunting and trying to rectify the situation, or at least to know that they have something, because knowing is half the battle. And with the early diagnosis, I was lucky enough to have been on biologics since I was 19, and probably, stop a lot of the progression of my disease. Arthritis is a very complex thing, and there's so many different types. It's known as an old person's disease, but it really isn't. It starts in a young person's body. Like there's a lot of juvenile arthritis out there. I had it when I had ankylosing spondylitis at a younger age. And, I think that just spreading the word and educating people with ankylosing spondylitis and different forms of arthritis, and trying to work together and form support groups and be there for each other is a really important thing. So that's my advocacy work. Is I really try to be open for folks to get in touch with me and just have someone to talk to about ankylosing spondylitis. As far as being an athlete who has it, I'm trying to inspire the people who have AS, but I'm also trying to inspire folks who are just trying to take a chance on themselves and get out there and accomplish something like an ultra marathon. A 200-mile ultra marathon is a life-changing experience for somebody. The first race it will change the way that you look at life because you're going through for multiple days, 5, 6 days. I mean, 3 if you're fast, but most people are doing it for 5, 6 days. And, there's so many ups and downs, highs and lows that you have to surpass and overcome that you really find who you are as a human being. And the confidence that you can build within yourself can translate into so many other areas of life. I think it's a really important thing for people to at least go out and, volunteer for something like this and be
Mhm.
someone who can support other runners on this mission and just see the inspiration that it'll bring you.
Yeah, well, I think it is inspirational, and I'm sure along the way, I mean, I can only imagine that you have these moments where you're like, "What am I doing? Can I finish this? Maybe I should just quit now." And you have all this self-talk that you have to overcome. So, do you have something that you tell yourself if you see yourself like kind of falling into that trap of maybe negative talk? Do you have something that helps you kind of spring out of that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I call it quit talk. And so I've done these races solo, and I've also done them with a support crew and pacers. Basically, you can have a support crew that follows you along the race and meets you at the aid station, and will, have your special thing set up the way you want it, and then you get to have a pacer that can run with you on the course, basically from halfway through the race to the finish. Those things are great. I love having that support system. Um, I I really do love that I've also done them solo because it gave me the opportunity to learn what it is that I need to set my team up for success so that they can be best able to help me.
Hmm.
Um, but I think as far as when I'm out there alone and I'm trying to get to the finish line and I have a hurdle, it's really all about mantras and convincing myself that everything is temporary, one foot in front of the other, things like that really, really help to get it done. I mean, I've had like the pain on my foot when my foot was broken. I actually used that to my advantage because I had a lot of other issues in that race that came up, but I had this foot problem. So what I used the other issues in the race to make it so that my foot didn't hurt so bad, and I used my foot hurting so bad to make it so that the other issues didn't affect me as much. I really think that the power of the mind in an ultra marathon
Hmm.
is at least 80% versus 20% physical. Obviously, having a cutoff pace of 2.1 miles per hour helps that because you can essentially walk the whole thing if you were to keep going for 200 miles.
Yeah, now you have my attention. I can walk, but no, the
That's the
running.
thing though. People say is when I tell them about this, they're like, "Oh, I could never drive that far," and they're like, "Oh, I can never do that. You're one in a million, whatever." You're a human being. You were designed to be moving. I mean, we're on 2 feet. Our diaphragm is separate from our gait, and we can go on forever as human beings as long as you can fuel yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think also it's just amazing that you have this mindset, you're overcoming all these challenges and being able to, just overcome that, keep going, and then inspire others to do it. Now I know you're in the process of making a documentary to talk about exactly this journey and your inspiration to other people. Um, tell me kind of, where are you in the documentary? When does that come out?
Well, this will be a special documentary. I've done a documentary called "Movement as Medicine" surrounding that Cocodona 250 race that I was talking about. Now, this one that's coming up is going to be called Sonoran Odyssey, and it is surrounding the inaugural Arizona Monster 300, which is my first plus 300-mile ultra marathon, as well as my 15th uh, plus 200. So that is from April 4th through 11th in southern Arizona. It goes through the Santa Catalina
Hmm.
mountains of Sun, and it's I'm really excited for that. But being that I've done, a typical ultra marathon documentary already, and I have a voice with this one. I really want to touch on mental health and the importance of mental health as an ultra runner, because as a general rule for my life, I really like to foster the future of the things that I believe in. I like to mentor the people who are willing to heed my advice, or at least want to talk to me or learn more, or maybe even give me advice. I think that the value of exchanging that information, from peer to peer is really important, and it's how we become smarter as humans. Um, so I'm looking forward to using my voice to talk about the importance, for instance, of, like I was saying, making sure that you're not going into ultra marathon running to try to escape from something. Being someone who was an addict and has an addictive personality, it's a road that I did take, and that's why I'm at my 15th uh, start finish of plus 200 distance, is because I went in deep. But it's important to uh, make sure that you're ticking all the boxes throughout your life and throughout your journey as an ultra marathon runner, because it can go south pretty quick. So mental health is a very big focus of the film, and also being that I'm a yacht chef, I wanted to also shed light on the yachting industry with this documentary.
Okay.
And so three of my support team members are also in the yachting industry, and the director is in the yachting industry as well. So we really want to talk about the importance of, as yacht crew, it's really important to make time to be able to uh, do things like this, like go on adventures and fill that cup of inspiration, rather than just being a slave to the system in an industry that is all encompassing and basically takes all of your time and gives you no freedom, unless you make it so that it does. And I think that a lot of yacht crew just accept that that's the way that it is, and that they're just a number and they're always going to be a number. But we're seeing a shift in things like, for instance, this is my first rotational position as a super yacht chef, and it comes with its benefits and disadvantages. Um, Disadvantage, I would say, is that when I am not working, I'm paying for my food and toiletries and everything like that. When I am working, it's all part of the deal. So life, you have to basically build a life away from the boat. Um, but there's ways around being a slave to the system, is what I'm getting at. And the main one, in my opinion, is that the program itself, meaning the yacht that the yacht crew works for, can put systems in place so that they protect that mental health side of their crew and help those people maintain that so that they can do their jobs better. And at the end of the day, it's all about uh, delivering the best possible guest experience.
Mhm.
And so, how do we do that? It's you've got to come to battle with a shield and a sword, and take time to make sure that you're ready for action.
Yeah, so pushing beyond our limits of what we perceive as our limits, and then it sounds like finding that balance. So, I kind of think of you as running for something instead of running away from something now. And it's very inspirational. What would you have as advice for, others as you think about kind of your biggest takeaways from your experience? I mean, you have, being a chef, the nutrition component that goes into this. You have a unique perspective into what I would call kind of a holistic view. What would be your advice for our listeners, and maybe even a call to action?
I just think it's important to take chances. And like the title of the value of vulnerability, it's you're never going to know unless you try. And it's so easy to convince yourself not to do something. It's so hard to convince yourself to do something. But, you know, I know a bunch of runners who hate going out for a run, and they love every run that they've hated going out for. So it's just really taking a chance on yourself, and time doesn't wait for anybody. Uh, it is going to move on, and someone else will get the opportunity that you didn't take. So just try things, be vulnerable, and be ready to learn new things. I think that people often cut themselves off from opportunities that they should have taken or at least tried. You can always bail out if you want, but if you don't take that first initial step, then you're never going to take the second one.
Great advice. It made me think of the book Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I don't know if you've read it. Great book about vulnerability. In that book, I actually have a picture of this quote in my office at home. It's a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, but she puts it in the book talking about vulnerability, where the credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, all while daring greatly. And, it's, you have to read the whole quote, read the book. It's great. Um, you're the man in the arena. You're doing it. I mean, day to day, I'm sure at the end of that race, that the blood, sweat, and all the energy that goes into it. But you're inspiring others, and thank you for what you're doing, and for all of us that look at you and say, wow, somebody out there saying, if you can do it, maybe I can do it, and that's amazing. That's really, you're in the arena. You're doing it. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate
I've
it.
got I'm dealing with femoral acetabular impingement right now, and it presents itself in my groin and my left hip. Basically, it's like a bone on bone situation
Wow.
that you know could be ankylosing spondylitis related, most likely is, but is also related to the amount of running that I've done, and amount of descending mountains that I've done. And it's I think, like, well, what if I didn't do all this stuff? uh would I not be going through this? And the answer is probably yes, but I wouldn't change any of the, like, I wouldn't not have done any of these races or adventures, mainly because of the people and the community that surrounds all of these events that I've been at. But it's just important to note that something that you do now could also have an effect on your life later on down the road. Um, luckily, there's options for me, and arthroscopic surgery could be one of them. Right now, I'm going through PT, pretty heavy PT, to make it so that I can be trained and prepared for this race. I'm spending a lot of time on the road bike to mitigate the impact. Um, but femoral acetabular impingement (FAI) is widely known in runners and just active people in general. So I'm hoping that in the near future they come up with some better solutions for like a high impact hip situation that lasts a long time. The human bodies, we have a shelf life, unfortunately, but it I I love the things that I've done with my life, and I want to keep going for as long as I can. I hope to meet more people and experience more finish lines and start lines, and hopefully take my advocacy work. Instead of just using my endurance, I'd also like to, maybe get into some policy and things like that to try to get research funded for spondylitis and arthritis and different things like that. So we'll see where it goes for the next few years.
Nice. Well, I think you're doing it right. And we definitely wish you the very best on this journey. Looking forward to the upcoming documentary. And thanks for being here. Wish you the best.
Thank you very much. And if anybody would like to go and check the documentary out, we have a GoFundMe for it,
Okay.
and we are looking for some donations, which also go to the Spondylitis Association of America. And you can check that out on my link tree.
Perfect. And we can add the link below, so make it easy. Uh,
Okay, cool.
Sounds great.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Values Exchange podcast and the importance of vulnerability. And hopefully you found it as inspiring as I did to go out there and push beyond what you would conceive as your limits.